Lord of the Mysteries. Chapter 958. Labeling. Dark red beams shot up, materializing into different figures on both sides of the long bronze table. The unchanging silence above the gray fog was broken as the eternal palace seemed to have an additional, inexplicable sense of life to it. Just as Justice Audrey regained her senses of her surroundings, she prepared to stand up to greet the existence at the end of the long bronze table. At this moment, as a senior spectator, she acutely noticed a difference. There were two more members than last week. One of them was a man sitting to the right of Mr. Moon. The other was a lady sitting to the left of the hermit. Audrey first felt happy that the Tarot Club was developing and becoming stronger, but then she kept to her professional instincts and quickly began observing. Due to where she sat, the man opposite her was much easier to observe compared to the lady 2 seats away from her. Therefore, she placed her attention on the man. Black hair. Green eyes. He doesn't wear a coat. A vest matched with a shirt. He sits a little oddly. He's not accustomed to sitting properly. He's probably about 180 centimeters tall. He has quite a desultory temperament. He's rather tense. At one glance, Justice Audrey had read plenty of information from the rather blurry figure. She then noticed something different. The man was quickly surveying his surroundings. Such an action wasn't a problem in itself. Anyone who came to this strange and secret location would definitely subconsciously size up the other members and attempt to grasp their traits and general situation so as to calm down. But the problem was that the man was moving his gaze too quickly. His gaze had swept past the moon, the hanged man, and the other members without pausing. To Audrey, this was a very clear phenomenon. It didn't mean that the man was observing his surroundings and studying the members, but that he was finding someone. He was looking for someone he had in mind. Audrey instantly felt a little excited, as she believed that this newcomer knew one of the members present. Who could it be? She observed for another second and realized that the man sitting diagonally opposite her had fixed his gaze on the World Gehrman Sparrow. Audrey was thrilled as though she had discovered a secret. She thought in enlightenment, the newcomer is a friend of Mr. World, or it's at least the case that they know each other in the real world. He also knows that he's a Tarot Club member. Or it could also be said that Mr. World had inducted him into the gathering. No, that's not very possible. If that were the case, the newcomer would be much more certain. He wouldn't be eagerly searching for someone he knows. He definitely would have placed his gaze on the other members for a longer period of time. Furthermore, such an action also proves that he's not abreast of Mr. Fool. What is his relationship with Mr. World? Audrey held on to her thoughts of continuing to observe as she stood up and turned to face the seat of honor. During this process, she took the opportunity to sweep her gaze at the new member sitting beside Ma'am Hermit. She's exchanging looks with Miss Magician. Her height. Zio has finally passed the test and joined the gathering? Upon identifying her, Audrey did a curtsy towards the figure shrouded in gray fog. Good afternoon, Mr. Fool. Just as she issued the brisk greeting, she realized something. Mr. Fool is a little different from before. This great existence seemed to be more one with the entire gray fog, palace, and space. His aura was lofty and mighty, like the sea or sky. This feeling isn't something that can be described with words. Mr. Fool has taken one more step to his awakening, allowing him to retrieve more of his authority over his divine kingdom? Audrey's eyes darted around, feeling curious and delighted, as well as a little sense of pride. At this moment, the hangman Alger and the hermit Katla had noticed the two new members. They noticed that the lady was a little short, and was secretly exchanging signals with Miss Magician. She was both unfamiliar but also familiar with the tarot gathering. At the very least, she was unlike the man in the white shirt and black vest. He had frantically stood up only after everyone began bowing. In addition, they sensed that the new male member took special notice of the World Gehrman Sparrow, causing them to have many guesses. These thoughts resonated in their minds, but they didn't express them. The hanged man and the hermit completed the usual first steps of the gathering with Miss Justice. As for the son Derek, He was just happy because the Tarot Club had new members again. The Moon Emlyn had mixed feelings. On the one hand, he felt a sense of superiority being more senior compared to the newcomers, but on the other hand, he had a feeling that there were just too many messiahs for the apocalypse. After some searching, the star Leonard determined that the one sitting at the bottom end of the long bronze table was Klein Moretti. This was because his physical characteristics were similar to that of Gehrman Sparrow's description. He's hiding his true identity. He doesn't relax even in such a secretive gathering, using 2 levels of disguises. I have to take note. Just as this thought flashed across his mind, Leonard saw the girl sitting to the left of Mr. Fool stand up. Then, she led everyone into bowing. He was taken aback, failing to react in time. He stood out when amongst all the standing members. After a second, Leonard snapped back to his senses and hurriedly stood up to deliver the greeting. Opposite him, Zio glanced at him, equating him to Furs to a certain extent. Furs shared the same thought. However, she had equated the man with Zio to a certain extent. This was because Zio had appeared rather unreliable when they first met. This is the star, and this is judgment. Take your seats and introduce yourself. The Fool Klein raised his right hand and casually pointed. The name, the star, keeps making me think that it's the code name for a lady. As Leonard thought in exasperation, he focused and began labeling the members in the order of their introduction. Miss Justice. Seems like a young lady, but she might have donned 2 levels of disguise like Klein. She's rather optimistic and cheerful. Although I can't tell the details of her attire, it appears to be very classy. Mr. Hangman Burley, restrained. He's likely to be a straightforward but rash person. Miss Magician. The way she looks at me is weird. From time to time, she will glance at Klein. I've no idea what's on her mind. She seems rather ordinary overall with nothing standing out. Mr. Sunday. He's very tall, but the way he speaks sounds like he's going through puberty. Although he's silent, he does seem rather friendly. Miss Hermit. Ma'am Hermit. She exudes a mature and staid demeanor. She's likely a very experienced beyonder. Mr. Moon. Rather young and looks a little reserved. Makes me feel like I've seen him somewhere before, but I can't recall it. I'll continue observing. Miss Judgment. Very short with very obvious traits. However, I can't be sure if she has donned 2 levels of disguises. The world. Very, very gloomy. This is likely his disguise. Well, it might also be his true nature. He wasn't a demigod before, meaning that this gathering has no lack of mid-sequence beyonders. I wonder if I'm the weakest one. As Leonard was observing the other members, Judgment Zio Derry Chow was also using her powers as a sheriff to extract the traits of the different members and keeping them in mind. A noble lady. Sailor or a crew member. Rather young and introverted, but it's not serious. Rather strong. The leader of at least a mid-sized team. Arrogant, of pretty good family background. Desultory, not staid. Gloomy, terrifying. Amidst their thoughts, the other members finished their self-introduction. The Hermit Catla looked towards the end of the long bronze table and said with a bow, Honorable Mr. Fool, I didn't receive any new Roselle Diary pages this time. Didn't receive. Does this mean that Queen Mystic didn't reply? I wonder what Bernadette is busy with. The Fool Klein nodded and calmly replied, Begin the transactions then. As he said that, Audrey noticed the reactions of the Hermit and the Hangman. She realized that they had yet to notice Mr. Fool turning loftier and sublime. Was I the only one who noticed it? Audrey darted her eyes slightly in thought, feeling somewhat poignant and a little happy. Of course, she also knew that Ma'am Hermit and Mr. Hangman didn't dare to look at Mr. Fool too much, especially the former. Most of the time, she only dared to look at the table edge in front of Mr. Fool. Table edge. There's an additional card of blasphemy. Audrey's gaze froze before she retracted it in pleasant surprise. With her intuition as a spectator, She was quite certain that the obtaining of the new card of blasphemy was likely to be the same matter as the World Gehrman Sparrow's mental problems, but with different outcomes. She hesitated for a moment and observed the area. I have nothing I need. Katla, Derek, Emlyn, and Furs had already made preparations and were about to advance. Therefore, they didn't have any requests. Likewise for Aldra, who was still digesting his potion. Instead, it was Leonard who had the desire to purchase a mystical item. However, with no one showing him an example, he was momentarily unsure how to begin. All he could do was divert some attention to considering Mr. Fool's need for Roselle diaries. After selling tinder, he wasn't lacking in money. Furthermore, having had the experience using creeping hunger, he realized that having a powerful mystical item was rather useful. At this point, Furs looked at the silent Zio before looking opposite her. Mr. Hangman, I have a material that I wish to be made into a mystical item by that artisan. She was referring to the ancient wraith powder that Zio had. Aldrich shook his head. That artisan has been controlled by some members of the Rose School of Thought who believe in the primordial moon. That's all I know. The subsequent matters have been left to Ma'am Hermit to handle. Rose School of Thought. Primordial moon believers. Left to Ma'am Hermit to handle. Leonard and Zio looked around and suddenly realized that the gathering they were participating in wasn't as loose as they imagined. They were secretly traversing through the shadows of the world.